Hey, what's up, everybody? BDFfortyfour coming at you with another video. All right, as promised, I told you guys I was going to do an NBA mock draft for this upcoming 2023 NBA draft, and this is that. I encourage everybody to check out my pre-mock draft video that I did right before this, kind of explaining you guys some of the thinking going into what I was doing here. So this is what we're doing. We're going to jump straight into it. We're not going to waste any more time. The first overall pick is definitely going to be Victor Wembanyama. And if anybody tells you that there could be a chance it's going to be somebody else, they do not really know what they're talking about. Victor Wembanyama is pretty much the best prospect maybe ever. Maybe Bron, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It ain't too many more touted than this guy right here. Victor Wembanyama is 7'2", at 210 pounds, out of France. And he is a video game, man. The best way to describe him is he looks like he's the regular size and everybody else on the court has shrunk. That's what it looks like to me when he's playing basketball. His proportion doesn't look real. It's like he should be 6'6", and they just literally put him in one of those machines that turn people into giants, and he walked right out of there with the same proportion as a guard at 7'2", which might be taller than that now. I think I heard that he's like 7'3" now, 7'4". I don't know exactly how tall Wembanyama is, but I do believe he's taller than 7'2". I do believe that. Whatever the case may be, Victor Wembanyama is going to come in and immediately dominate the league. He should be one of the premier shot blockers in the game immediately, and is also somebody who just kind of just plays like Kobe or Kevin Durant or somebody like that. When he's shooting the ball, he looks like somebody who's been on this planet before doing this, and we've seen them in Gatorade commercials and all kinds of stuff. This dude is a different level because of his height, and then the ability to just hit fadeaway jumpers and trick shots and 3-point shots falling away and all kinds of stuff like that, dribbling, cross you up and stuff like that. It's not even fair. The fact that this dude can dribble like a 6'6" small forward or something, it's not fair that he can do that at his height. So I just want to encourage everybody to watch as much highlights of him as possible, because this is somebody you definitely have never seen anything like this before. I guarantee that. So, number 2, I have the Hornets going with Scoot Henderson. Obviously, Scoot Henderson, if you know Scoot Henderson, he is just a muscle-bound bowling ball of, just overall strength. He's like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook put together because of his ability to pass the ball and shoot and do all kinds of different things. Play cerebral, play intelligent, and also has that body that just basically can run through a brick wall. You kind of it doesn't really make much sense to take anyone other than him, in my opinion, at number 2, even though there is some questions about the fit. Ultimately, it's 6'2", 195 pounds. You just understand that when you see this dude play basketball, he's going to be pretty much unstoppable, and has just a certain quality about him that helps you understand that he could lead your franchise and be a good cornerstone. So with him and LaMelo Ball on the team, you do wonder how it's going to shake out overall down the road, or if the Hornets would even be willing to trade this pick, which I think could be possible. But I do have Scoot being the second overall best prospect in this draft, and so the Hornets should take him out of the G League Ignite with that second overall pick. All right, let's keep it going. I got the Blazers. Things are going to shake up a little bit here for my mock, and some people are going to be a little shocked at what I do from here on out, but I just went with what made sense to me. And that is Amen Thompson for the Blazers, out of Overtime Elite, and that's a 6'6" point guard, shooting guard, 200 pounds, and basically the best athlete in the draft. Honestly, I think he might actually be a better athlete than Scoot, to be honest with you. He might be. Just quick, twitchy, somebody that's going to immediately pop off the screen, drives at the rim. He's just basically some type of jet engine powered person down there, just running around with complete control over his body. The only thing that I could say concerns me about Amen Thompson is his jump shot is not there. He's going to have to work on that Lonzo Ball style. It's ugly, and it's going to stay ugly until he fixes it. But I don't think it's going to matter too much when you realize the dude can literally teleport all over the floor. So basically, he's a different level of intense athlete, and I do believe that he's going to make all-star teams with ease once his game comes around. Sort of like Giannis, one of those guys, Zion, he's like that in his own way. And he's really, really fast, and he passes the ball really, really well. And it just has good basketball IQ overall. It's just until his jumper comes around, he's always going to have his potential capped off. it's just an extremely good athlete as opposed to somebody going multiple MVPs. But if his jumper ever does come around, the sky doesn't even begin to harness this guy's potential. Not at all. So that's why I took him with the 3rd overall pick. Not only because I really do think of him as a really good prospect athletically, and personally don't put as much value on jump shooting, which is why Brandon Miller has slipped a little. But ultimately, I just look at Amen Thompson as probably a more covetable trade piece. So let's say you draft him and with intentions of trading that pick. I think it's more than likely if you are asked to draft, the team that's going to want that pick is probably going to want Amen Thompson. They're going to want to try to get him before the Rockets do. So that's what I see happening there. Or, of course, if for some reason the Hornets take Miller or Thompson, then they'll probably want Scoot from the Blazers themselves. So I can see that pick being on the move. But I do think that Amen Thompson will probably be the most coveted player in that range, and because of it will likely be the player that whoever wants to trade with them will ask them to make the trade for. I really believe that. So that means that the Rockets are going to be in a position to take Brandon Miller, and that's exactly what I have them do. I don't have Brandon falling too much farther than that, although there are some other people that will be falling very, very far, actually. But yeah, that's what it is. Brandon Miller, a 6'9", small forward out of Alabama. It's going to be going to the Rockets, and they kind of already have his piece, to be honest with you, in a guy by the name of Jabari Smith. They kind of play alike. They kind of look alike. But that type of height, that type of jump shooting, if you let them develop together, along with what they already have in Green, obviously Sengun, Martin, they have so much talent there. Brandon Miller would actually just slip right in as a small forward shooting guard combination player that can just hit every shot, create plays for others, and just overall be a cerebral piece that they can add to what it is that they already have, which should make them ultra great. It should make them ultra great when you consider Brandon Miller's ability to just be efficient and hit shots. And then from there, Sengun's ability to make plays off of those guys and continue to control the paint. And then the athleticism of the players around them. It's going to be fun if they do get a chance to get Brandon Miller. I also think if for some reason Brandon Miller is a player that maybe another team wants, the Rockets could potentially move Brandon Miller, since there are some questions about Brandon Miller with some off-the-court things that have taken place that have kind of made people look at him a little bit differently. All in all, I think that Brandon Miller's shooting ability, his overall basketball IQ, his clutch nature, which is really intense, his ability to hit last-second shots and demand the basketball down the stretch of basketball games and make plays. He has that gene in him. He should be able to win some games in the NBA in big moments. So with Brandon Miller being such a phenomenal shooter from all levels, probably the best shooter in the entire draft, he ain't going to fall past 4 in my humble opinion. And he can really fit in a lot of places too, even though he's going to have to put on a lot of weight. He's a true rookie, as opposed to some of these guys that are surrounding him who are more so athletes and have more ready-made bodies. At the end of the day, he's going to be a technical nightmare out there to try to guard. His length isn't as long as one would think for a player that's a small forward, this type of situation. He has a 6'10" wingspan and 6'9", so that's not really overwhelming like a Brandon Ingram who's like a 7'2" wingspan or something like that. But all in all, his shooting ability and just overall basketball IQ and intense confidence, I think makes for him to be somebody that could potentially be a franchise player once he puts some weight on and overall gets better at being a pro. So that's what I think of Brandon Miller. I think he's going to be a very good pro. And I don't think that the Rockets are going to be upset if for some reason he falls to them and they get a chance to pair him next to Jabari Smith. They're going to be hitting jumpers. They're going to immediately become a very, very lethal tandem of shooters. So I'm kind of excited about that low key if that actually happens. And let's keep it moving. So with the fifth overall pick, I have the Pistons taking Central Florida's Taylor Hendricks at 6'9", 215 pounds. Now, I know for a fact that this is not what everybody thinks is going to happen in terms of consensus. But my thing is this. I tried to make sense of what the Pistons are going to have to do in regards to their roster, and I didn't find any players in their range that really fit them. And while you don't really necessarily draft for fit, if you have a bunch of lottery picks in your starting lineup that you have set that you want to be a part of your future, if you do draft a player this high that you can't overuse properly, then even though you are getting him at a certain value, he's going to immediately drop in value once he gets on your team. So it probably makes more sense for you to trade this pick down so that you can find yourself in a position to take Taylor Hendricks in a more of a range that makes sense for you, or you can reach for Taylor Hendricks like I did and not worry about it if you feel he's the best fit, which in my calculation, he seemed like a pretty good fit. And the reason why is because even though I really like Cam Whitmore a lot, for most teams in this situation, I do believe he might be the 5th overall best prospect in this range. I found that I don't feel as comfortable putting him at the small forward position as maybe I do a Taylor Hendricks. I look at Cam Whitmore as more of a power forward. I got a Blake Griffin type of mold in my head. And when I look at the Detroit Pistons roster, you're sitting on 2 centers that you're likely going to need to play starters minutes in Duren and Wiseman, who are probably going to develop very well. So if you're not going to move either one of them, you're going to ask them to come off the bench for each other so that you can make this pick make sense. And then you got other pieces to consider in Ivy, Cunningham, and several others. And then I looked at their situation. I said, okay, Bogdanovich, he's an older guy. Even though he's playing well, coming off a fantastic season, probably will be on their roster next year. I want to make sure I have that small forward position solidified for the future so that Wiseman and all those guys that they got in place can have a roster that they can grow with for the rest of their careers. So drafting for fit here made a lot of sense. I would have liked Miller to fall to me if I'm Detroit. Maybe I even trade with the Rockets this pick so I can get Miller myself. But it seemed to me that Taylor Hendricks would have been a really good fit because I feel comfortable putting him at the 3, and if for some reason he can, obviously can play some 4 as well. I'm not asking any of my centers, the 2 centers that I've committed to that are obviously going to be fantastic, to take steps back so I can fit a guy that doesn't necessarily fit on the team in their position. But at the same time, if my coach wants to go smaller, a guy like Taylor Hendricks at 6'9", 215 should be able to allow for him to play some small ball 4, 5, if for some reason they just want to match up that way and comfortably play the 3 a bit better than I think Cam Whitmore, who's listed as a small forward, power forward player. But when I do my homework, honestly, I don't see nothing but a power forward there, man. Even though he's technically shorter, I just look at the size on Cam Whitmore and the style that Cam Whitmore wants to use, driving at the rim and dunking on people. It's more of a paint presence than maybe a guy like Taylor Hendricks, who's going to be a fantastic defensive player, fantastic shooter as well, and then just slips in as your prototypical switchable 3-and-D guy that can really do everything for you. And he's a monster athletically as well. And so I just look at Taylor Hendricks as a player who's going to have to develop more, but is somebody who's probably going to likely grow with the Pistons, fit more with the Pistons, and you still feel good about taking him if you have to at this range because he's pretty much this good. So there are other ways Pistons could go. I spent a lot of time on this pick, but ultimately I landed with them reaching for Taylor Hendricks at 5 with the intentions of likely making trades to make it a bit more sense. But I committed to no trades in this draft, so I just went with this. All right, so let's keep it pushing. The Magic, I got them going with Azur Thompson with the 6th pick, the overtime elite, 6'7", small forward, power shooting guard combination, not a point guard like his brother, but this is the other Thompson twin. Very athletic, not as athletic as his brother. All these other not as, but he is a better shooter than his bro, and that does stand for something. Not much better, but better. And he seems to be developing faster than his bro's jumper, so that really stands for something. Obviously a fantastic athlete, fantastic passer, somebody who's going to play defense very, very well, and just somebody who's going to be very, very smart. He's an extremely smart player. Both of the Thompson friends have high basketball IQ. So with the Orlando Magic, for me, they could have also took Cam Whitmore, but I looked at their situation. I said, okay, even though I love the idea of pairing Cam Whitmore and Paolo Banchero together, and then all that size looks amazing to me, what I also see is Franz Wagner in place. And I'm like, all right, I got mainstays in place with those two at my forward positions. So do I need to draft the best forward just because he's fallen to me, or a couple of those great forwards are in place? Or can I take another guard in Azur Thompson? It's not a point guard, but he can play shooting guard, a big shooting guard, extremely athletic shooting guard that can kind of come in and play that role a bit more so, kind of allow us to move some guys around. I look over there, I look at Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs. They can move on from those guys. Some of the guys that they're using at the shooting guard position can't be moved on from. So there will be some shooting guards later available for them at 11, in my opinion. But you could take a guy like Azur Thompson, and get away with playing him at the small forward position if for some reason you want to, but more so fit him in at that shooting guard position and have him be like an overall facilitator for your team. Got come off the bench, play some Gary Harris minutes, but more so a bigger role, obviously. And just overall develop with that team and eventually become somebody who can be their starting small forward or shooting guard. If you want to move on from Jonathan Isaac, since he's had his injury issues, Azor Thompson can kind of fill in at the small forward position, do a little of that. If for some reason you want to move on from Carter, move Paolo around, maybe move Franz around, Bol around, I think ultimately you can do a lot with Azor Thompson in Orlando there. So that's why I put him there. He's just a guy who can play a lot of different positions, a bit more switchable to me, or rather interchangeable than some of the guys who are in that range that they could also take. So, yeah, let's move on. The Pacers are going to go with Jarris Walker. And I think I have Jarris Walker going to the Pacers in just about every scenario there is. I just think they have their eye on Jarris Walker, and unless one of those teams ahead of him take him, which I don't think is the greatest fit for any of those teams, to take Jarris Walker, I think he'll fall right nicely to the Pacers at 7 without any concerns. Jarris Walker is 6'8", 235 pounds, pure muscle. He's going to defend. He's going to shoot the ball. He's going to attack the rim. Just a really, really good two-way big guy. Full power forward, center, small ball center, but a real meaty, heavy dude that you're going to put on Zion, that you're going to put on Jokic, that you're going to try to, put on AD. This is somebody who's going to try. You're going to put on these people to try to, attack them defensively. So I really like Jarris Walker for the Pacers. Even though they do have some players like Smith in place, I think ultimately when you look at what they need, you just need another guy that you can put next to their center. My mind's going blank, but Turner. In regards to blocking shots, they would be one of the best two-man shot blocking tandems in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Immediately just becoming a fantastic defensive team around Tyrese Halliburton and all those guys they got there in place. Ben Mathurin. They just got a really, really good team at this point, and adding a guy like Jarris Walker to it would just make them a playoff team, in my opinion. That would officially make them that. So, yeah, he's out of Houston for those who are wondering what college he went to. And I encourage people to check out highlights on him, too, because he's fun to watch. That dude is a monster, big dude that's going to lock people up around the perimeter. All right. So, Wizards are going to be picking at 8. They got a guy by the name of Anthony Black out of Arkansas, 6'7", point guard, 200 pounds. And I like Anthony Black. This is another one of those fantastic perimeter defensive players. Obviously, as I said, a big person, 6'7", who's going to do a lot of things. His jumper hasn't quite come around, but he's a cerebral guy, very, very intelligent, who's going to get the ball to others, make plays on the defensive end, and just overall be a nice floor general. And I think somebody who can slip in next to Bradley Beal and do really well. When you think about Anthony Black, you don't want to rely upon him to do too much shooting. You don't want him to be somebody who needs to be accountable for all the shooting on the team, but he can do everything else, that kind of thing. So when I think about Anthony Black, he's a perfect complement to Bradley Beal. He's not taking shots away from Bradley Beal. If anything, he's getting Bradley Beal more shots and ultimately taking a lot of pressure off of him on the defensive end. So Anthony Black is a very good fit for the Washington Wizards, and I expect for him to be available at 8. All right. So, number 9, I got the Jazz taking Cam Whitmore. Now, I know the Wizards could have took Cam Whitmore. I sat there for a long time and looked at the Wizards roster and said there's nothing here that they really need in that power forward or center position that would justify actually passing on Cam Whitmore. I want people to know that I have some common sense that pertains to Cam Whitmore. I'm not down on him. It's just that the Wizards literally need a point guard that bad. That's how bad they need a point guard. It became a situation where it's like they got Porzingis, they got Kuzma. Nothing on their team they're really married to, but when I look at their point guard position, I'm like, you cannot justify being in this range, having a franchise point guard on the board and not taking him just because somebody fell to you. And I don't actually think Cam Whitmore is probably going to fall like this. Probably some other things are going to happen that I don't expect happening. This is just my drive. This is my mock draft. So in that situation, the Jazz would have obviously been able to get Cam Whitmore. That's what it is. He's falling right to them. And I think the fit's okay. They're going to have to make him a small forward because you're not moving Walker and you're not moving Markkanen, obviously. So those are your small forwards and your point guard, your power forward, and your center. I got to get it right. Your power forward and your center is going to be there in place already. So there, you're going to ask Cam Whitmore to play some small forward. But the good thing is, it fits better than in Detroit because Cam Whitmore is going to attack the rim, and they don't really have that type of piece. They got jump shooters, you know what I mean? The only guy that kind of plays like that in my mind on that team is THT, and I think him and Cam Whitmore could be a nightmare next to each other. And when you talk about how they attack the rim together, THT and Cam Whitmore are going to be absolutely special, man. I already know how that looks. And so this is one of those situations where even though I don't really love Cam Whitmore playing the small forward in my mind, although he probably is a real small forward, I just don't know it. It's one of them type of things. I see him as a power forward. With the Jazz, putting him as small forward still allow him to play some power forward because Markin ain't going to play like that. So it's like a different type, like, you know, it allows for more space for him because Markin is going to play the perimeter so much. And then they get out in the fast break, they score a lot. And I think when you have a video game player like Cam Whitmore in an offense like the Utah Jazz, with his ability to shoot the rock, with his ability to make plays for others, with his ability to play defense, with his ability to just basically be a Blake Griffin, Sean Kemp type mold, you put that on this team with Markin and you put that on this team with Walker, and then you got Agbaji hitting threes, Jordan Clarkson playing like an all-star off the bench basically. I'm really excited about Cam Whitmore if for some reason this actually plays out this way, because I think it's a decent fit that nobody's thinking about, and ultimately he would give the Jazz a dynamic that they have probably never had, like literally never had. So yeah, I low-key would love to see the Jazz trade up to get Cam Whitmore as I think about what he can be as a small forward piece on their team. Obviously, you're going to put the ball in THT's hands, but their point guard position is a little shaky. I like Colin Sexton, but you can move on from him. Let THT have the ball in his hands. Put the Cam Whitmore at the 3. Let Agbaji be your 2. Bring Clarkson off the bench, and you got a fantastic team, man. Absolutely fantastic. So I don't know how realistic it is they get Cam Whitmore. Maybe they end up with Taylor Hendricks. Maybe they end up with somebody like that. But if they can fill that piece with one of those 2 players particularly, I'm really excited about the Jazz, man. I'm really excited about the Jazz. So that's what I want to say. Cam Whitmore to the Jazz is a sneaky good fit. So, number 10, we're going with Derek Lively. Now, Derek Lively is a 7'1" center, 230 pounds out of Duke. I don't know. Oh, by the way, Cam Whitmore went to Villanova. I forgot to tell y'all that. He went for Villanova. And Black went to Arkansas. Forgot to tell y'all that. Darius Walker went to Houston. Yeah. All right. So, back at it. Duke is where Derek Lively went. And he's just the best shot blocker in this thing not named Wembanyama, simply put. Just one of the best shot blocking prospects over the last couple of years, from what I understand. And really somebody whose three-point shot fell extremely well in the combine. I had a chance to watch the footage of him shooting those threes, and they were falling. He hit about 9 to 10 of them in a row. The boy was hitting them. Corner threes, nevertheless, it wasn't like he was all over the place shooting them, but the point was you could see the stroke and the ability is there, at least from that corner, and that's good enough because we know how much the corner 3 is going to need to be hit in this league. So a guy like Derek Lively feels the biggest need for probably anybody in the whole league, and that's Dallas's interior defense, and Dallas's inability to rebound, and Dallas's inability to score in the paint. Anything else that has to do with the paint, they have nothing. Absolutely nothing. And they're talking about re-signing Kyrie Irving to all the money in the world, put him next to Luka Doncic. You have got to make sure you do well with this pick, or trade it for the things that you need to get right. But with Derek Lively sitting right there, although they could use some shooting, and there's some other players on this board that I think will fit very well with Dallas, nothing is more glaring in the entire league than Dallas's need for a damn center. It's why they tanked to get this pick, because they didn't think they were competitive enough to play in a play-in tournament situation, because they didn't have that piece. So why in the heck would they get their pick after tanking in front of all of us in the last minute, pulling all of their starters in the final game of the season so that they couldn't win, even though they could have won and it would have got them into the play-in tournament? They did that so that they could get this pick. They got the pick. You had better fill the need. So Derek Lively should not get past the Mavericks at 10. If they do anything else, we'll be talking about them. We'll be talking about them. He should get off the board right there. That's it. All right. So the Magic, they're going to be able to draft a fantastic shooter out of Kansas, Grady Dick. 6'8", 205 pounds. Homeboy is a sniper. Y'all better know this early. Grady has a clip and he's going to shoot it. And I'm telling y'all, I already know what type of player he's going to bring for the Magic, because, of course, we've already seen J.J. Redick get drafted to the Magic and how much success they had. They got to a finals, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was on that team against us. Was he? No, probably not. But nevertheless, they know that shooting is something they need. And with them drafting Azur Thompson, who doesn't really shoot the ball like that, With their 11th pick, it would be very wise to pick up a shooter. Now, some people think that Jordan Hawkins may be a little better. Other guys, Podziemski's also a fantastic shooter. They got some other shooters in this draft. But for me, Grady Dick's the guy. Out of Kansas, 6'8", 205 pounds, as I already said. Definitely somebody with muscle all over him. Shoot the ball. He's going to get stronger. You know what I mean? I said muscle all over him. I don't think that's right. But nevertheless, he does have some good size to him. He has some good length. Plays some defense, not really his game. But he does make plays for others. And can attack the rim a lot more than people think. Has more athleticism and agility and more intangibles to his game than people think. So I'm really excited about Grady Dick, man. I wouldn't mind if he falls to the Lakers, although that doesn't seem realistic. If for some reason he does fall, he's going to make some teams very happy because he's not going to miss very much from pretty much any level on the floor. So I'm really high on Grady Dick, and I think he's going to go to the Magic and immediately become the best shooter, one of the best shooters in the Eastern Conference, to be completely honest with you. So that's what I'm putting out there right now. And with the 12th pick, the Thunder are going to do what everybody expects them to do and take Bilal Coulibaly, 6'7", 200 pounds, 7'4" wingspan out of France. Of course, he was Victor Wembanyama's teammate. A player that really has upside. You see the body is really what you're banking on, the body and the upside on his with both sides of the floor being something he should be able to affect with his overall skill set. I think the question about him is whether or not he's going to remain engaged throughout 48 minutes of play. He tends to be a guy who just ends up jogging a lot, from what I understand. But he's a very young player with extremely good metrics, and I think you want to kind of just keep on with the theme of getting long, wingy players that can kind of complement what the Thunder already have. They really have a lot of shooters. They could have gotten a shooter here or another guard, but I just felt like with them having SGA, J-Dub, and of course Giddey in place, you didn't really want to make a play for a guard here, but more so try to see if you want to continue to boost through your front court to kind of help overall Chet Holmgren. If for some reason you continue to have issues with Chet Holmgren, you can put a guy like Coulibaly down there and just have more length. Maybe you want to move on from some of the other guys. I can't think of his name, but the long player that they have that also kind of runs around and doesn't do as much. His development may not be coming along as well. Maybe they can replace him with a guy like Coulibaly. So that's where we're going from there. We're going to move on to the 13th pick, and that's going to be the Raptors. And I think they're going to take Kobe Buffkin, 6'5", guard out of Michigan, 195 pounds. Kobe Buffkin could have very easily gone earlier, to be honest with you. He's a really, really complete offensive player with some defensive intangibles as well. Good length on him. Clutch player who can really, really just overall do a lot for you, make plays for others, kind of fast. So I really like Kobe Buffkin a whole lot. I think the Raptors are going to try to probably replace their point guard with this player here and just overall put themselves in a position to have a better year. They don't really need to boost their small forward position necessarily with Scotty Barnes in place and OG Anunoby and all these other guys that they got, obviously. So for them, I just felt like, hey, point guard situation is going to need to be fixed for them. They know that. If Kobe Buffkin's sitting right there, I think he's probably the best point guard on the board. All right. So next player is going to be taken with the 14th pick by the Pelicans. It's going to be a guy out of Kentucky by the name of Cason Wallace. By the way, but Kobe Buffkin went to Michigan. I want to get that right. Cason Wallace is going to be headed to the Pelicans. In my mock draft, he falls a little bit, but it's not because I'm not high on him. I am. And there's some ambiguity about how tall Cason Wallace is. From what I understood, he was 6'2" on one listing. In another listing, he was 6'5", and in another, he was 6'4". I don't know if he's in the middle of a growth spurt or not, but that does make a difference. If he can get up to 6'4", 6'5", then I see him a little differently than if I have him at 6'2". But all in all, this is one of the best two-way players in the game, of the roster in this draft, and could potentially turn into one. In the game. You talk about Kentucky point guards, they always turn into something better than what they're drafted to be, just about every time. So this is one of those situations where you expect Cason Wallace to come in and immediately be someone like Drew Holiday, of whom, of course, they had for many years in New Orleans. So I kind of see him coming in immediately snatching the ball away from people. And you have Cason Wallace and Jose Alvarado on the same team. Do y'all understand what's happening here? I want people to just kind of think about that for a second. That's what you're dealing with. So I already know that if you find a way to get Cason Wallace on the same team with Jose Alvarado, it's going to be a nightmare for all guards who have to go against them, especially little ones who they can keep up with. So, yeah, I would definitely take Cason Wallace because I love the theme of having those two people be an absolute nightmare on the defensive end against all teams. So yeah, that's why I'm taking Casey Wallace. Not to mention that he probably shouldn't fall much farther than this. All right, so this is gonna sound corny. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, my 15th pick with the Hawks is going to be Jordan Hawkins. Yeah, I know, but honestly, I did a little thinking about this pick for the Hawks because a lot of stuff is shaken up to where they didn't necessarily get everything they wanted. Maybe they could use some guys that are a little further behind them, but you don't necessarily want to poo-poo Jordan Hawkins' ability to be a recipient from those 2 point guards that are ultimately going to be on the floor all the damn time. When you consider that he's going to likely be filling in for Trae Young or DeJounte Murray, you're going to always be able to put them on the floor with an elite shooter because either he's going to be on the floor or Bogey's going to be on the floor. And then obviously those are 2 of the best shooters out there. And you're talking about DeAndre Hunter, his ability to stretch the floor. I just really like the idea of adding yet another lethal scorer to this team. Now, it would be nice if that scorer played a different position, maybe even the small forward position, which I would love to kind of fill in for them. But the small forwards that they're going to be using in this draft, in their range, probably aren't guys they want shooting the ball. And you got A.J. Griffin. You got Hunter. And you got Johnson. So it's like, how much do I really need to invest in my small forward position really when I look a little closer at their roster? And then you say, okay, well, the center position could be upgraded. Maybe you want to move on from Capella or kind of move somebody in, power forward position. But at the end of the day, I didn't see them passing on Jordan Hawkins when I considered the name corniness coupled with the ability to just be so dang lethal. And if they do move on from one of those point guards, here goes another shooting guard that you can throw in there that's going to immediately be dangerous. Also, with him being able to run the floor like a madman and constantly make people tired, I just love the idea of him being able to come off the bench and just wear somebody out who's frustrated after the Hawks get in foul trouble and one of those guards have to come off the floor. So I think Jordan Hawkins will be a good Hawk, and I'm going to move on from there. All right, so the Jazz at 16, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Now, Jalen Hood-Schifino, I really, really like for the Utah Jazz in this situation. And this is where I looked at what we already had in regards to the Jazz taking Cam Whitmore. They solidified their, small forward position. Now at this point, you just want to address that point guard. And this is what most people think they're going to do. If Jalen Hood-Schifino's on the board, they probably will take him. 6'6" point guard out of Indiana, 215 pounds. It's a big guy. It's somebody who can get the ball to a guy like a Walker Kessler or somebody who can find THT, driving and cutting at the rim. He's a really good dive passer. Somebody who's going to make a lot of plays in a big body down there that I just like, kind of replacing Colin Sexton next to Agbaji, just making them an overall good, young, strong team. When you consider all of that size in that front court, they'll be able to match up with some of these teams that are being built big. You know what I mean? This is exactly what I had in mind. So there's nobody in that starting roster any shorter than 6'6". If we do this, I don't know. I think Agbaji might be like 6'4", something like that. But we're talking about big people all up and down that roster, including THT. That's going to either be coming in off the bench, or maybe Hood-Schifino comes in off the bench for him as a point guard. Of course, you got Clarkson coming in as well, so their second unit with Hood-Schifino and Clarkson could be really, really exciting. I just like the fit there. I really like the fit there. Depending on how they want to use the player, they definitely have the role for him. Moving on from Sexton, I believe, will happen, or moving Sexton just further back. So that's what I see there for the Jazz. And then my Lakers. Boom. I'm excited about number 17. I sat there for a good 20 minutes trying to figure out what the hell to do with the Lakers here, since I had shaken up the roster in such a way that everything I wanted was probably off of it. And I looked at my team and I said, I got to find a balance here, because I'm truly a believer that guys who can only shoot are guys that should probably not be on my team. I want guys that can do a lot of different things. The problem is the Lakers really need shot makers. And there are some really, really talented shot makers still left on the board. So I wrestled with a few of these names. Some of these people should not be falling this far. I'm not going to lie to you. But I got the Lakers passing on some of these other guys like Keontae George and Leonard Miller. And I got the Lakers falling in a sweet medium between finding fit and upside. And I took G.G. Jackson. G.G. Jackson is who I fell on for my own L.A. Lakers in my mock draft, because out of South Carolina, 6'9", 215-pound, small forward, power forward combination player. He really can do anything, honestly. When you look at what he's profiled to do, he doesn't do anything wrong. And what stood out for me is his ability to put the ball on the floor as a power forward. One of the problems that the Lakers have had, the underrated problem, is that our power forwards don't tend to put the ball on the floor very well outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and we do have rim pressure demands in regards to our play style. We must be able to find the same rim pressure that Russell Westbrook and players like that had for us when we had them on the team, and we haven't been able to replace that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, who the hell can drive at the rim regularly, young body that can fit in, that's not going to take away nothing, but can still provide us overall more front court depth for AD and Bron, somebody who can fill in for Bron if he's out, and somebody who can come in and turn into something when we move on from this era. G.G. Jackson is probably the highest upside player in that range for me. Even though I know you got to wait on him, he's the youngest player in the entire draft, which actually is a plus for me. It's not a minus. Although I know we should not be waiting on anybody, I'm a Laker fan, and I'm going to do what's best for my organization. I'm going to get the best player on the board who has the highest upside, who can also simultaneously fit a need. So that's what I did. I got a little selfish here, and I just took what I knew I should, rather than going with what I think everybody else would do. If you're not a fan invested, I took a player I think is going to turn into something, and most importantly, somebody that I think can help us now. And another big part of this, I know my South Bay Lakers are a fantastic G League. We have some of the best player development in the league. So if I trust anybody can turn G.G. Jackson into something, it's us. It's us. So that's what I'm gonna say about that. All right, the Heat. The Heat are taking a player that I actually probably would want from my team more so than I want G.G. Jackson if I weren't in the situation where I can't afford people not to be able to hit shots. Leonard Miller probably is a better player than G.G. right now. In fact, I think he is. And I wrestled hard with not letting him fall to the Heat. But I think he fits on the Heat very well because they don't necessarily need shot makers because they find a way to win without them. As you can clearly see, they have shot makers. Don't get it twisted. There are plenty of them. Please don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. But that small forward position, I think they will be able to survive with their small forward not hitting shots more so than most teams because of how they play, how they'll be able to take advantage of Leonard Miller's strengths. Sorry about the dry mouth here. Take advantage of Leonard Miller's strengths, which is really everything but shooting the ball. So if anybody can go to a certain situation, fit the style because of the Heat culture and the ability to run all over the place and play hard, keep under a certain weight style and all these different things were taken into account when I drafted here with Leonard Miller, because I just feel like he's going to fit Heat culture. He's going to come in with a humble attitude and an eager to work mindset, and he's going to be running all over the floor, playing better than he's drafted here at 18. Rebounder, defensive player, passer, somebody who's going to run the floor like a madman with the ball in his hands. I really like Leonard Miller, and I'm really mad that I felt that I probably should take somebody above him at 17, but I did, and I'm happy with what the Heat get here. This guy played in the G League Ignite with Scoot Henderson and was one of the best players out there for their team all year long. And so Leonard Miller getting better significantly from last year to this year is somebody that I think a lot of people are high on, and I think the Heat probably will not pass on him at 18 if he's there. I don't think they do. All right, let's keep this going. The Golden State Warriors at 19 are going to take Ryan Rupert, 6'6", small forward, 185 pounds out of France. And, you know, of course, with this pick, my thing was there's a lot of different ways the Golden State Warriors could go. Obviously, with shooters still on the board, you can go with a Keontae George, you can go with a Brandon Podziemski, Nick Smith still on the board. There's a lot of guys that I could have went with, Chris Smith. But for me, I just said the Golden State Warriors have Draymond issues, first of all, because you don't know if you're going to bring him back. And then you got defensive issues on top of that to where you always have a need for Wiggins to defend somebody or for GP2 to try to guard somebody, or you're asking guys to do certain things. And for me, it's like, yeah, in my mind's eye, I see them probably wanting to take a shooter because that's who they've been. But I also see them with a need for a high upside wing with length that can kind of fill in for Draymond Green if he departs, who can continue to play some defense for this team who's had issues with that. Kuminga doesn't necessarily defend. They brought in a guy last year who's a fantastic shooter, Baldwin. I don't know that he's a defensive player. Jordan Poole on this massive contract. I don't know if they're going to move it. Bring me a defender, please. Can somebody block a shot and rebound around here besides Draymond Green? And what's his face? Wiggins. And, of course, the great center that went nuts in the getting 20 points a rebound, 20 rebounds a game. And I can't think of his name, but, you know, they got forwards, but they could use a small forward with some length and some upside and somebody who can usher in the new defensive generation of Golden State Warriors. And I just feel like this is a good opportunity for them to reach, well, not really reach, he's actually in this range just fine, and grab a guy, Ryan Rupert, that I just think will bring them a different piece than what they're used to having, and somebody that fill in with a lot of length and rebound. So let's move on. All right. Now the Rockets are going to get one of my favorite players in this draft in this situation with 20. Brandon Podziemski's headed to the Rockets. A 6'4", 204-pound guard, shooting guard, small forward. I think he's probably a shooting guard. One of the best shooters out there, man. This dude can do a lot of stuff, and he rebounds the ball like crazy. This is a rebounding monster, and of course, anybody out of Santa Clara, you got to take seriously because Santa Clara has produced some pretty good guys as of late with Jalen Williams and Steve Nash. And I think someone else of noteworthiness has come out of that college as well. So that gives us an idea of what we can expect in regards to the upside of a guy like Podziemski coming out of that system over there, who's just going to hit just about every shot. He's a swish magnet. He just swishes everything, and he's going to play extremely hard. Reminds me of like a Josh Hart, speed kind of guy, better version, who's just going to come in and hit every three on top of being burly and looking to just rebound the ball like a madman. So I'm super excited about Podziemski, and I would be surprised if he actually falls to 20. I think he'll actually go before that. So next up with the Nets. Took a long time to get the Nets picks right, y'all. I'm telling y'all, I sat here for like 30 minutes on the Nets, too. They have 2 picks back-to-back, 20 and 21. And with 20, actually 21 and 22, excuse me, and it's going to be Nick Smith out of Arkansas, 6'5", 185-pound point guard, and Noah Clowney out of Alabama, 6'10", 210-pound center, power forward, shot block combination. Now, the reason why I took these 2 positions, even though there are a lot of small forwards on the board, some shot makers, a lot of stuff that I think that would fit the Nets' overall image, what they do. Since we did that with the OKC Thunder, you would think I would do that with the Nets. But the Nets situation is different, and the reason why is because the small forwards that they have may not necessarily be in place next year. They're talking about possibly Cam Johnson leaving in free agency, maybe, depending on if they decide to match his offer sheet, which I don't know if they'll need to if they take the right small forward in this range. They got, Royce O'Neal, who I don't think he's on more than a expiring contract when they traded for him. I don't think he was more than one. I don't remember. Maybe they gave him an extension, but even so, he's not your starting small forward. You got Bridges, who's probably your best trade piece to try to get better if for some reason you want to move on from him. I don't know that he's exactly the superstar that you're paying him to be. And he does have great value coming off a fantastic year, so maybe they can afford to move on there. And then I look also when I say Claxton, there's a lot of rumors that they may be moving on from Claxton. But at the end of the day, all of that is rumors. And so as far as I can tell, they got nothing but small forwards and a chance to re-sign all of them or keep all of them. So my thing was, let's not go small forward unless we start hearing of them needing to replace the small forwards they have or double down in the same position that they pretty much already have. So my thing was, let's do something different and give them guards and a center. Just in case they do lose their center there and he does leave in some type of trade situation, this allows them to bring that rim protector in there in Noah Clowney that can just block shots all day long, kind of develop into somebody who can start for them, but if for some reason they don't move on from him, can profile as somebody who can play the 4 or play behind him. And Nick Smith is just a leading guard. I look at their situation, I say, okay, they got Ben Simmons, who they're going to have to keep because there's no way to get rid of him. You're going to have to use him to the best of your ability, which means probably putting the ball in his hands and letting him be a facilitator to others. This is why you want to get shot makers, which is why I kind of wrestled with maybe Bryce Sensabaugh or Keontae George or something like that. But at the end of the day, for me, I just said Nick Smith is a guy who has the highest upside. They can afford to upgrade their point guard position. They still have Cam Thomas in place to be a microwave shooting guard, so I didn't really need Keontae George for that, unless they move on from Cam Thomas. So my thing was, let's bring them Nick Smith. If he has the upside to really turn into something, he could be something that is different than Cam Thomas, someone who could probably likely play next to Spencer Dinwiddie or be better than Spencer Dinwiddie, but not necessarily the first year. So all of this is being taken into account, and ultimately I just said, all right, Nick Smith makes the most sense for me at 6'5", 185 pounds out of Arkansas, who is coming off some injury issues, which is why he slipped this far. So he's going to be better than this. But you can also wait on him because they have Dinwiddie, because they have other stuff, and don't have any expectations of winning. And if he does turn into a star, then you're in Brooklyn, so it works that way. So all of this is taken into account. So that's why I took Nick Smith, and Noah Clowney to help shot block and ultimately replace Claxton or not replace Claxton and play behind him. Provide him that front court depth help that he's going to need along with Sharp that's already there, so on and so forth. All right, so the Blazers got the next pick, and this is how far Keontae George falls for me. I'm sorry. I just seen too many J.R. Smiths and O.J. Mayos. I'm not up on dudes that don't have high basketball IQs, but super motors and super ability to hit tough shots. That means you're gonna be taking tough shots a lot. So that's my thing. I don't like the profile of Keontae George at 6'4", 185 pounds, but he is an extremely talented shot maker, and it's probably going to be somebody who has a 50-point game some point in his career. He's really that good. But you just have to wait for him to develop. And I think with the Blazers, they don't really need too much in this situation other than to be thinking about what direction they want to go in overall with their team. So I looked at the fact that I got them Amen Thompson, point guard, shooting guard combination. And I thought that their guard position, with Simons potentially being out, with Dame being somebody they probably want to build around, but could also be on the move. So it's a lot of weirdness going on with their guard position. I don't know what direction they're going to go in. And because I don't know what direction they're going to go in, I think they probably should put themselves in a position to have enough guard play that makes them as good as they need to be if they replace these guys with other positions or something like that. So that's what I wanted to bring them in regards to this particular player. Keontae George come in and be a microwave scorer of trade piece, possibly somebody they can move to another team if they want to, somebody they can replace Simons with if they move on from Simons, complement Dame with shot making, somebody who can hit a corner shot as well, and just somebody who's not going to take away possessions from anybody on the team really. At the forward spot, thinking about guys like Watford, you think about guys like Grant, depending on if they bring him back. This was a good place for a small forward to also go as well, but I just felt like Keontae George had fallen far enough and was really too good of a player to pass on for a team like the Blazers, who probably could have some changes with their guard position, particularly guys who are shooting the ball. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they really have a player profile to do what Keontae George does, which is come in as a shooting guard kind of combination player and just look to Kobe it up. Look to just do all types of J.R. Smith type stuff out there. So that's why I gave them that player. I just don't think they have that. They have a lot of stuff, but not that. All right. I didn't have to think too much with the Kings, man. Chris Murray's on the board. You want to keep his brother, you better draft his brother. You better keep an eye on making Murray happy. That's basically where my mind was. So you draft his twin brother. You don't disrespect him by passing on his kin if he falls to you. So that's really what it is. You take 6'8", left-handed, small forward Chris Murray out of Iowa at 220 pounds. And ain't the only reason why you take Chris Murray. You also take Chris Murray because you could be potentially losing Harrison Barnes. And what is Harrison Barnes? What did I tell you guys Harrison Barnes was? He's Murray's doppelganger, dude. He's the same height and the same weight as Murray. So if you're going to lose that piece, then it makes sense to bring in his actual doppelganger, his twin brother, who's the same height and the same weight. And they're going to be attacking from different ways because his brother is right-handed and Chris, is left-handed. So you really have an interesting dynamic there. We got these two guys that look exactly alike playing in opposite hands. So you'll never lose an understanding of who's who. Just look who's playing with what dominant hand. But nevertheless, that's what I see them doing. They bring Keegan, because I couldn't remember his name, low-key, brother to him, Chris Murray, who's going to basically be a upside version of him. Not quite as good as him, but good enough to probably bring the best out of both of them. You bring in his twin to him, it's nothing. It's going to be fun to watch those two switchable forwards develop off of one another. And I just love the idea. You lighten the beam. You bring in Murray, his brother. You just got the Murray twins for the next 15 years. You should love life if you're Sacramento. You hope this happens, and it should. Nobody should take Chris Murray above this range, and Sacramento shouldn't pass on him. He should go with 24. So, moving on, the Grizzly pick. This was one I did some thinking about, and there's some players here that I know they could have took, but the reality is we don't know what's going on with Ja. And because we're not going to know what's going on with Ja until after the finals, which is likely going to be before the draft, I don't think that they're going to have as much to wonder about as I do when I'm making this pick in my mock. But I took a point guard, man. I didn't want to take no chances. If Ja's going to be out, I saw how bad Jones was shooting in the playoffs. My Lakers and wiped him out. Dude couldn't hit a shot. You're going to want to get a point guard. So I took Amari Bailey out of UCLA. 6'5", 185 pounds, profiles as a defensive player. Can shoot some shots up from the mid-range, make some plays for others. But I just really like how feisty he is defensively. I love the idea of bringing him to that grit and grind type of, Grizzly, mentality. Playing him next to Jones at the shooting guard position, maybe if he wants to. Well, that's a little small to play shooting guard, but defensively, I think they both can be really dangerous down there coming off the bench. And just overall, somebody I think could be a really, really sneaky, nice guard to have on this team. If Morant is going to be out for maybe a month or even a season, who knows how long Morant is going to actually be suspended. You want to make sure that you have a high-level guard in place that doesn't allow you to skip a beat, so that you can bring back Brandon Clark and all these different guys that you have, the Bane, of course, and all these guys that still contend. Jackson in place and all that. And so for me, it's just like, how can I just make sure that they have a strong enough guard position so that if Ja's out, he'll be fine. Get them a two-way guard that can kind of come in and not necessarily step in front of Jones, but will be good enough to step in front of Jones if for some reason it develops well. So I think Amari Bailey can be that. And I really like what he's going to do for them coming off the bench. So moving on, the Pacers at 26. We got them taking Dariq Whitehead, 6'7", shooting guard, small forward position player, 220 pounds out of Duke. Problem with Whitehead is he's had 2 foot surgeries, kind of taking away from some of his athleticism. I don't know if it's permanent or if it's going to be temporary, but he profiles as somebody who can definitely shoot the ball, catch and shoot very well, and then on the other side can really do some good things defensively. High upside player on both ends. You want to take a two-way guy sooner than this, but because of them foot injuries and all of that, you just don't feel all that great about taking him sooner with some of these guys having a high upside in the range. But Dariq Whitehead could very well go much sooner because he just flat out has more stuff to him than some of the guys in the range. So that's what I said here with regards to the Pacers. I looked at their situation and I just looked at the previous players they had picked up. Obviously, Jarris Walker at 7. I just look at them and I say they had needs in a lot of places, but I think giving them a two-way guy that can complement what they already have, just boosting them more of Mathurin's, more Nembhard type guys, Dariq Whitehead just slips right in that rotation and keeps that process going. You don't have any drop off on either side of the floor. You just keep the good times rolling, so the Pacers just get richer. And I really do think that if these players are drafted, if they get Jarris Walker and Dariq Whitehead, they may have won the draft. Like low key, those are very high level players to get in their positions. So I don't know that he falls this far, but I love it for them. Love that for the Pacers. Especially if you're going to be moving on from Buddy Hield. You can kind of slip him in at that 2-guard role. Maybe even play some 3 as well behind Mathurin. He's not going to get in the way of Jarris Walker. Not going to get in the way of Smith if you're keeping him. Not going to get in the way of Brissett. They got all those power forwards and small. So all they really needed was yet another person to kind of put into the small forward position, shooting guard position, kind of replace Buddy Hield if they're moving on from him. So that's what we got there. Halliburton gets yet another player he can find. Another 6 assists for Halliburton on top of all the other efficient shooters that he's going to be playing with. So, yeah. Next up, the Hornets at 27 going to be taking Bryce Sensabaugh, 6'6", 235-pound small forward out of Ohio State. I really like this player for the Hornets because, first of all, Bryce Sensabaugh is another one of those guys that probably shouldn't fall this far. I got him falling further in my mock because he doesn't really play defense very well, and I don't value shot making like a lot of people do. That's exactly why he fell this far. But he would be an excellent player put next to P.J. Washington, put next to Mike Williams. At that small forward position, a huge body. And he's going to make the Hornets very, very difficult to guard when you consider having him in that lineup with those other guys who are very, very good. Think about PJ and his ability to shoot the 3. You put another 235-pound dude next to him, now you can see them having opportunities to defend certain teams. And maybe had little issues defending before. So I'm turning the Hornets into a very serious team by having them take Scoot Henderson and Bryce Sensabaugh, because those are some very heavy and big people to put next to a pretty already big and heavy team in what they have with Williams, PJ. If they're bringing back Bridges, I don't know, he may actually return. That's another huge player on top of that with Bryce Sensabaugh to put next to LaMelo Ball, next to Scoot Henderson. Are y'all seeing what's happening here? Hornets are getting good, man. Low key, they're getting good. Still got, Book Knight coming off the bench, who I think is a better player than people think. Still got, my guy who played with the Boston Celtics on that big old contract at the shooting guard position. Maybe this is the year to move on from that piece. So my mind's gone blank, but he's a good player nevertheless, so they may be able to move on from the contract since it's kind of matured a little bit. And Gordon Hayward as well. So this is a player who's going to be able to step in behind Gordon Hayward, Bryce Sensabaugh, and give him a lot of breathers, be extremely efficient just like Gordon Hayward, and just make the Hornets a very sneaky, sleeper Sacramento Kings type team for next year, especially if they get Scoot Henderson and Bryce Sensabaugh. So, next up, we got the Jazz making the third pick that they have in this range, taking Jet Howard out of Michigan, not Michigan State. He was a Michigan Wolverine, 6'8", 215-pound shooting guard, Jet Howard. Jet Howard is a player he is polarizing on this channel because I've talked a lot about him because I think he could go 17 to the Lakers and fits the team. He literally fits. Problem is he doesn't play defense, just like I said with Bryce Sensabaugh. He's just a defensive liability for me, and I take that very seriously for myself. So I didn't really want to take him before some of these other guys that I just think are going to be better in those areas, even though he shoots better than a lot of them dudes that ultimately got taken before him. So for me, I looked at the Jazz and I said, okay, you already got Cam Whitmore. We love that. And then with the other pick, we took Jalen Hood-Schifino. So with everything that you already got in place, now you can just afford to kind of get yourself another switchable guard, small forward combination player with a lot of height who can just hit a bunch of shots. It's going to complement what you already have with the elite shooting that's already on the team with Agbaji and your power forward there, Markkanen. Sexton shoots the ball very well. Clarkson can shoot the ball pretty well. Jet Howard comes in and just makes y'all extremely lethal and extremely big. And when I think about the Jazz, you got Denver over here you got to deal with. You got the Lakers being a big team as well. You just want to continue to be big. And with them being so huge now with Cam Whitmore in place and me giving them all that size, with Jalen Hood-Schifino, I kept that going and gave him even more size with Jet Howard. They're going to be one of the most lethal offensive teams ever when you add Jet Howard and Cam Whitmore, and of course the passing and big size ability of a Jalen Hood-Schifino. I'm turning the Jazz into a freaking juggernaut. I hope y'all know that. All right, next up, the Pacers are going to be taking City Sissoko out of the G League at night, 6'8", 200 pounds. I really like City, man. I did a little homework on the guy. It's a big dude, reminding me of who did he remind me of, man? I don't know who he remind me of, but he's a big size small forward who just has a lot of size to him. Very heavy dude in terms of trying to deal with him out there with his length as well. Just a nice power forward, can hit some shots, pass the rock, play some defense. Just an overall real good defensive prospect. And when you look at the Pacers, having them had just a bunch of picks already and another pick coming up 2 picks from now in the second round, I'm not going to do. But that lets you know that they have so many opportunities to just reach in this range, given the fact that they have picks so close to one another in 26, 29, and like 33 or something like that. So for me, I just said, okay, in this range, I'm not as familiar with who is best. So I'm going to bow out in regards to how much of an expert I feel I am to the players that could be drafted ahead of him. And I just went with somebody I knew. And I will tell you of other names that I think could go in this range as well that I just don't know that well. So if they're better than these guys, that's my fault. But for now, City Sissoko goes to the Pacers as a 6'8", 200-pound small forward, power forward kind of guy that can really just help them overall stay huge. Like I said, we already gave them Jarris Walker and Dweek Whitehead, so they got some two-way ability out there with City Sissoko as well, who's just going to overall keep them huge as well. I'm thinking size for a lot of these teams that I know are going to be dealing with the Detroits and the Orlandos and the OKCs and the Denvers. I know what's coming, so it's like if y'all ain't thinking like I'm thinking, you better be thinking like I'm thinking and get yourselves a big starting lineup with a bunch of dudes that are 6'7", 6'8", that can just play both sides of the floor and give yourself some length. So if you don't have that, you ain't gonna be able to match up with these teams. You're just not. So I made sure the Pacers had that. All right, and with the last pick we're gonna draft here, it's the LA Clippers taking Maxwell Lewis, Pepperdine forward, 6'7", 195 pounds, real nice long arms, catch and shoot prospect, play some defense, back to the basket kind of guy, can create plays for others with his back to the basket. Really, really, really nice cerebral player. That's going to be very good for the Clippers. My thinking with the Clippers was, as I said, I don't really know everybody in this range, so there's probably some better names. And I thought that there were some names that I knew better than Maxwell Lewis that I may want to take there, but I just felt like I'd respect the range a bit better since Maxwell Lewis's prospect draft range starting to raise a little bit above some of the guys that I like in the range. So I just felt like it might be a good idea to give Maxwell Lewis a really good two-way wing with long arms to the LA Clippers, kind of let them continue on the path of having a players that can replace Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, because at the end of the day, I do think it's time to move on, baby. I really do. I think they need to be moving on. I look at some of the pieces that they got in place. Who's going to complement Terrence Mann? Possibly replace a guy like Nicholas Batum. Let's think about the various things that the Clippers could really use. And I just felt like giving them yet another one of those switchable wings could not hurt. If anything, you could just stay in situations with those guys and just make them an overall very comparable team with, again, size. So that's the theme around here, man. We're going to make sure teams are big. We ain't doing too much small ball at all. And the names that I didn't either know very well or guys that I just felt wouldn't go in the range but I like a lot are as follow. First, the names I don't know that well. Tracy Jackson Davis, Andre Jackson, Terquavion Smith, Julian Strother, and Bobby Clintman. Guys that are starting to rise in the range that I haven't done homework on. So if for some reason I like them better than some of the dudes I drafted, then that's just what it is. I don't know of them yet. And another couple of names that I know of that I like a lot, but I just don't think are going to go in the first round, so I didn't put them there. Olivier Maxence Prosper, Isaiah Wong, James Najee, and Jaime Jaquez. Guys that honestly, if I had the 30th pick, I probably would take. I probably would take them or trade down if I really like those guys, like I do in real life. But especially guys like Olivier Maxence Prosper, I think he's probably maybe the 25th best prospect in the draft, to be honest with you. He's a fantastic defensive player with long arms. He's going to come at you with a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of hustle. I really like that player. Also, a guy by the name of Kobe Jones is another guy that I really like a lot in this draft that I think is going to go in the second. No, Kobe Brown. Excuse me, Kobe Brown is who I'm trying to say. 6'7", 7'1" prospect that I think is going to be really good. 7'1" wingspan prospect that I think is going to be excellent down there as well. So I just threw him in there as one of those names that I didn't put in that first round because probably they're just not going to go in that range, but are definitely players that I think are going to be real NBA players in this league. And there are many others as well, many others in that second round of quality that I definitely want to do homework on, but I didn't want to do 2 rounds because this took an hour. So I appreciate everybody for rocking with me in regards to my very first NBA mock draft. I'm not going to commit to making another one, although I may do one every day. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I definitely have a passion for it and will continue to do studying on these guys. I want to let you know that I respect the fact that I've had Cam Whitmore fall, Keontae George fell. You know what I'm saying? I respect that Casey Wallace fell, so I don't want people to think that I'm not aware that this happened. But it's just how I see it in this particular mock. And to be honest, some of the early picks determine what actually happened later on. So